What's the Henning origin story? Who founded it and why?
My grandfather and his brother came over in 1912 from Denmark in steerage of a boat, got separated from their family. And so my grandpa and his older brother, by 2 years, ended up spending several years hauling a hod and making mud and doing stuff to learn the business and eat in New York City. When they got enough money, they got on a railroad and headed west. When they ran out of money, they would do some farming for people as a farmhand or do some work. And then they got enough money, they kept going west. When they finally got to Iowa, my grandfather got off, and his brother said, I've always wanted to go to Alaska. I said, if I ever got out of Denmark, I'd go to Alaska. And he did. He ended up being a governor up there because it still wasn't a state at that point in time. And Grandpa ended up being a farmhand for the Johansson people, who were customers of ours. At that time, he was a farmhand for them for 3 or 4 years, and eventually broke off and started. Back in the day, the farmers would buy all the material themselves, and you would just hire the labor. So they hired Grandpa, and eventually had a couple, 3, 4 other people work with him. And that's how we started in 1924.
And supposedly, Martin Johansson was Lars's sponsor to get over here, is what Mark was telling us.
Probably to stay once they got there,
Okay.
yes. Yep.
And I think Lars built Martin's house in Latimer.
Yes.
They had an argument about where the stairs were going to go, and Martin says, it's my house, and Lars says, I'm the builder. And Lars, the builder, put it where he wanted it.
Yeah.
Wherever it was or wherever it wasn't going to be.
Was that the same Halloween where we went and tipped over the outhouse? Is that the same place?
Drug them all over uptown.
So that's why we got here. That's how we got started.
So how did Grandma and Grandpa meet?
I cannot answer that question. My grandmother was German from the Lupkemans in Hampton, and Grandpa was in Latimer. I think we were working for some of the family over there, and either Grandma liked Grandpa or Grandpa liked Grandma. I don't know which one, but
Or all the above.
yeah.
Good. Were both Owen and Wayne born in Latimer?
They were born in the house, yes.
Okay.
Yep. My Uncle Wayne was 9 years older than my dad.
So I've read that Uncle Wayne started in carpentry at age 13. Any truth to that?
Yeah, probably. He ended up going into the Navy, got called into the war. He was in the Coast Guard, got activated into the Navy during the war. Came home, went to work with Dad, and they bought the company from Grandpa. But Uncle Wayne, the big guns in the war, had hurt his ears, and he kept falling off the buildings. So he decided to go to town and become the postmaster and do the books for the company until about 1956.
Okay. And what did Grandpa Chris do?
Grandpa Chris was on the railroad, and he was separated. Grandpa did not see him or learn where he was until 1954. He was 18 miles away in Clarion, Iowa. And he worked for the railroad as a gandy dancer, which are the people that replace the rails or replace the ties and so forth. Tough work, hard work, driving the spikes, etc. But anyway, in 1956, there was a reunion, and he had not seen his 5 brothers or sisters except for his older brother, Chris, that came over with him since 1912, 13, 14. And so they all got together at Grandpa's house. There's a picture on a sawhorse of myself, my father, my grandpa, and Chris, great-grandpa Chris, all on a sawhorse. So,
What's your favorite memory of Grandpa Lars?
he did not swear. He was the pastor when there was no pastor in the Methodist church in the little town we were in, which was quite often. And so 2 pieces of that, I had 19 bars for having never missed Sunday school 19 years in a row. Grandpa did drink a beer, a little one, a short beer, once or twice a year in Elms Cafe in town, and you made mud for him. And he did not swear very often, but if the mud was not of the right consistency or wasn't there when it was supposed to be, it was mud, God damn it, mud. That's what you heard. Or if the scaffolding wasn't put up right, you got to take it down and put it back up again. And so you want to tell them the story about the Kohler parsonage?
It wasn't that one, but I got a couple of them. When I was a little kid, Lars was the one at Christmas time that hand you the sack of candy and peanuts at church after church Christmas service was over. And then I was working for Owen at that time, and Juanita and Joanne said, every time someone opens up the door at the office, the wind comes in and just blows everything. So we need a vestibule. So Jeff sketches it out, and Lars was there. He was going to lay the block up. I don't know how old he was at that time. He was old. And I went out, and Owen was kind of wondering, I'm paying you to do my work. Why are you out there with my dad? But I said, I'll help you. Tell me how you mix mud. Tell me how you do this. And he'd say, damn kid. Start hitting blocks, cutting them off. Damn kid. After about half an hour, I said, Lars, what kid are you talking about? He says, that one right in there. He says, when he placed these windows, he didn't place them so that you could cut a block in half and use the other half on the other side of the window. He had to cut them in thirds. And he says, damn kid, and he'd be chopping those blocks
That's a true
on
story.
every window.
By the way,
So I learned something. When I was drawing something, I'd get the measurement of the block, so I knew I wasn't going to be called a damn kid.
and by the way, he passed away laying those brick on the front of the office.
Is that right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. So right up to the end, he was done. He was done. So.
And another story was where they lived, where Jeff lived, and his grandpa lived. At night, Lars would lay up the corners. It was a brick house, and he'd lay up the corners, and his grandma, during the day, would lay the courses.
With the boys. And so Grandpa'd come home from all day, laid up the leads on the corner, and Grandma and the kids would do it. Now, you got to remember, they started the house in 1939, and it was like 43 when they finally got moved in. Yeah, so that gets to the silo story. But somebody else can probably tell that. But there's pictures of my grandpa walking around the top of a silo on his hands. And it's 5-inch clay tile silo, 40 feet in the air, 35, 50, whatever it was. So at Christmas, he wanted the kids to walk across the living room. And by the way, it was a wool, rose-colored carpet, tougher than scratch, been there forever. You had to walk it on your hands across the living room and back, and if you did, you got a silver dollar. He never gave a silver dollar, not to one of the kids, not to one of the grandkids. None of us could do it.
One of my favorite stories that you tell, Jeff, is Lars dropping the clay tile silos between the gates in the fence.
Yeah. So he laid all these things, and customers were still alive and aging out and building other houses or adding on and doing things, or just shutting down the farm, per se. And the silo would sit there for 10 years, or more, with hopefully nothing in it. That was always a key. But he had a deal where they would pay you to knock this thing over. But if he didn't lay it between a gate, which is at least 16 foot wide back then, sometimes 12 or 14, if he couldn't lay it between the gate and knock the post down, and this is, understand, knocking over a clay tile silo, then you wouldn't have to pay him. But if he could knock it down between the gate, you had to pay him. And so as a kid, I ended up, I don't know if you helped on any of those or not, Del, but as a kid, not as a kid, a younger man, I helped him with a number of times. But there's a real knack. Today we would put a transit on it. We would figure out where the gate is. We'd have a right-hand thing. We'd figure out right on the side. Grandpa would just look. He'd walk around. He'd point to that one. He'd go to the side on his side. All right, hit. And you just start putting the V in it. And then finally you start working the V out, but you had to do it each one at a time, each one of you, or would twist and turn. And he did swear the one time I got ahead of him. And I got to pay him. But he did that, I'll bet, 25 or 35 times. People will call him just to see it happen and take pictures, and wish I had some of the pictures. But.
So Lars, 1924. Owen took over the business in what year, Jeff?
48, 49.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about Owen.
My father was graduated from high school, as did my mother was the valedictorian. I think there were 7 of them in the class, and my dad was not. But they got married, and they went to Des Moines, and he worked in a butcher shop or slaughter plant. That's why very few of us eat a certain kind of meat, and because he saw what they were throwing in. So, long story short, they came back and went to work back in the family business, and he and Wayne bought it from my grandpa, and he did basically the same thing. I got paid for labor, and the farmers were buying everything. And my dad and my mother said, why don't we buy the material? So it kind of changed the piece of that process. And eventually my father in 1964 saw the bin business coming on and didn't know, he took several counties in the area, but that's it. They didn't go any farther than that. That's all their world was that big. Love them. But he got into the bin business and did quite well in the bin business and grain drying, storage, and handling business, which eventually is where Mo came from in that part of the time. But Pop then gave me the choice when I got back to buy one company, well, actually, to work for the construction company. He offered me $6,750 a year. I went for a short period of time to Chicago for $14,000 a year. I had an 8 to 5 job. I got up at 5, got on a train, got home after 8 at night, and called my dad on a Friday night and said, is that job still open? He said, 6,400 and be here Monday. But eventually I bought it from Mom and Dad.
In 1961, my mom and dad bought the Latimer Cafe from my grandpa, and they remodeled the whole front furniture store, which is where my office is now, and then the cafe. And we were closed for probably a month. And Owen and Wayne would build the coffee bar. We had a beer bar and we had a coffee bar, the little one. And I think there was 12 seats that had a twist top on them. And at night, my older brother, which is same as Al and Jeff, would sand on it. And then the next day, Owen or one of the guys would work on it and finish it. Took them about 3-4 days. Through time, that thing has stayed in Latimer. Got cut in half, and now it is in my son's bachelor room, or whatever you call them, and with 6 stools.
Yeah.
And that. So
Yeah.
that stayed in Latimer.
My father cut his finger off, and they picked it up, put it in one of the bar towels, walked across the street to Doc
Hierman.
Martin. No, Doc Martin. And Doc Martin sewed that back on, and my dad still had that finger when he died. It's just he couldn't bend it. So, small town.
So how was Owen to work for?
When we got along, we did real well. When we didn't, it was a good thing we moved out south of town about a quarter mile and had a 180-foot building, so he and I could speak with each other at each end.
How many years did you work for Owen?
Well, if you count, say, 1971 backwards, I probably started underneath a table saw when I was 8 or 10. I used to sweep underneath the table saw. We had a wood stove, and we'd throw the extra pieces of wood from the cabinet shop and all the sawdust in there to heat it the next day. And so I did that when I was young. Ended up eventually working for Charlie in the cabinet shop and learning the cabinet business from Charlie and Carlos and all the rest of the characters we've had over the years.
Here's how that worked in the office. There was a storm went through Latimer, so Jeff says, you guys can all have a day off. I'll pay you for 8 hours. Come back tomorrow. Go home, clean your places up. We lived above the grocery store at that time, so my front yard was Main Street, my backyard was the alley. And so there was nothing. And my dad got a call from Owen, said, is Dell around? And he said, yeah. And I used to work for Owen when I was in high school, unloading grain bins by hand off a semi. And he says, I got a grain bin that's all loaded up. It's on a boom truck. He says, I'll give you a 5-minute course. Would you deliver it for me? And I said, sure. So I delivered it, come back. He said, what are you doing here? I said, well, I delivered the bin. He said, where'd you deliver it to? It was some Johansson out north of town. And he says, it takes these other yahoos twice as long for that. He says, you sit right here. And I says, okay. There's a big window to my right, and I could see Juanita sitting right there where Sam is. And she looks at me, she winks, and Owen goes into his office.
Which, by the way, they were 8 by 16 with one wall between us. You could hear everything.
You could hear everything. And pretty soon, I hear Jeff with his mild voice that he's got, damn it, Dad, you can't keep taking my employees. And I looked it back at Juanita's like, what do I do here? And she just winked. She said, you're okay. That's how it was working with Owen.
So you did end up working for Owen for a while, correct?
Yes, I did. About 3 years, 4 years in that. And then he asked me if I wanted any part of the company. And I said, Owen, I enjoy the sales. I don't want to manage people. I don't want the hiring process. And he said, okay, so I'm going to close my door. And my chin hit the table. And he said, but I think Jeff's going to hire you. I didn't know this. And so I went and talked to Jeff, and Jeff hired me.
So when did the two companies become one, Jeff?
84.
Yeah.
When he had the auction.
Yeah.
Henning Companies was Owens.
Yeah. That was the bin company at that point, the
And then
handling
Henning Construction.
storage at that time.
So we came full circle and called it Henning Companies
Yes.
again.
Yeah.
Yep. That's right.
Not LLC.
Not LLC. No, that probably wasn't a thing in
I don't
that
know
time
if it
frame.
was.
Did all three generations ever get to work together? I mean, you and your grandfather and father.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, when the Latimer State Bank was being built, the original bank, for PH Marketing at that point in time, I was raised up to the top of the safe because they had tie rebar, and there was only about that much room between that and the ceiling, and I was the one that got put up there. I wasn't quite this size. And my grandpa was laying the brick on the place and working it, and my dad was the contractor for the deal, working with his hands and installing the cabinets and so forth. So, yeah, that was just one occasion, but yeah, we worked together quite a while. I worked with grandpa and dad for many years.
Is that bank still in operation?
Yeah, there was somebody took it over.
I don't think it is. Is it going?
No, they tore it down.
They tore it down now. Yes.
First Citizens bought it,
yes.
built a new bank.
Yeah.
Then they wanted out of Latimer, so First Bank out of Hampton now
Mm-hmm.
owns it.
But
Al
Al
ran
and his father got that bank and win.
man, I
That was a
don't
bidding.
remember.
That was a bidding deal.
Yeah,
He and his dad were bidding on the bank, and my dad and I were bidding on the bank. Then about 11 o'clock at night, my dad said, "We have to have this done by midnight." And I said to Dad, "We don't know anything about this. We got enough trouble with what we're doing," you know. And so they ended up
Yep.
buying the bank, their family.
So one of the things that we're recognized for, probably across the country, is our red pickup trucks and our license plates and the logo. Tell me a little bit about that, Jeff.
You want to chime in on that?
First off, there was that red color is not red. It's cardinal and gold, okay? Which you Iowa State grads understand that, of course. Anyway, our first office, second offices, and third offices, all the office were the desk, everything were red or gold, or cardinal or gold. The trucks, then the mandate came out, okay, we're going to have all the trucks the same way. So we had everybody's car, truck, whatever was out there was cardinal and gold for years and years. So everybody, as you mentioned, Kevin, recognized that color, recognized those We Build license plates. And you could drive, I had people talk to me that had, 500 miles away, said, "Oh, I saw one of those trucks on the interstate going down the road." So,
Or the logo on the end of the building.
yes, yep.
Yeah.
Funny story, the original red desk with the gold piping on the side is now my home
Your home
office
desk?
I converted one of those into put nice metal legs under it, and
Great choice.
yeah.
Yeah. We always, at this point in time, wonder why the Sam Race's department store it doesn't have the I in it. Well, back in the day, my mother wanted to give me a license plate, a personalized license plate, and you could only have 6 letters. So it was WEBILD. And, of course, we're all stuck with that every time you do an internet.com deal. What was that again? Everything was missing but you. So Lisa is the one that come up with that.
I like to tell people we build, but we can't spell.
Lisa would
I'm the one with the license plate. I
Yeah.
have the original one that his mother gave me.
Yeah.
So Lisa would prefer that you say that it's it's WEBILD. The only thing missing is you. That was some sort of a University of Iowa thing that she put into us.
Speaking of that University of Iowa thing, I will tell you, when we would travel together, we'd go down Interstate 80, and we would go all the way around Iowa City. Or we would fly. We're flying in a charter. We're flying all the way around Iowa City.
Never flew over Iowa City.
But guess what? Guess where the girls went to school? And so somebody else got an education out of that also. So
So at what point in time through the evolution of the business did we start to get into the agricultural, the layer industry specifically, Jeff?
Specifically 1964. The Borkening brothers, all 3 of the Borkening brothers were Highline at that time had decentralized locations all over. So Ed Hensel ran the Highline hatchery in Alexander, and he was a Highline rep at that point in time. And so they decided to put chickens off of the floor and into buildings. And so we built these great big 32 by 138 foot buildings and really got them up to 220, I think, before it was over. But that started then. We built the Borkening buildings, all one or more, and then other people around there. And one summer in 1966-ish, 65, 60s, we built 14 of those across the United States of Iowa. And so Al and myself and other people on the football team would build the kick-out doors that go on the bottom. I'm sure we got 65 cents a piece for them. After football practice and on weekends, and that's how it worked. There's some stories there that we're not going to tell.
Yeah, I'm sure. Been quite an evolution since then, what our industry looks like.
Yeah.
Del, do you want to give any insight on all the different versions of what we do for a business?
I do remember those houses. For what reason, I don't know. Like I said, I was 14 years old. I couldn't drive to the site. They would drive you to the site in the summer days, and they'd give you a hammer and a nail apron that you tied behind you. So I do remember that, and I remember them going from the floor to nest boxes to cages, and by God, what are we doing now? We're going back to nest boxes. I mean, getting rid of the cages has come full circle of what we're doing, and it is what it is.
So in '86 or so, Al was getting ready to go to Texas.
No, I'd accepted a job to run the state Farm Credit Association Special Asset Group in Illinois. The night before we left, Jeff and Cindy came over and said we went out to eat dinner, and so we're sitting there.
It was out at his place actually.
And we're sitting there eating dinner, and we got all done. We're sitting talking, and I'm supposed to leave the next morning. I accepted the job, and we went to the front door, and Jeff says, "Al, why don't you just come and work with me? We'll just partner together. We'll work with me." I said, "Oh, Jesus. Okay, this is good, because now I'm supposed to be on my way to Illinois the next morning at 8 o'clock. Let me give that some thought." So anyway, long story short, I called him at about 9 o'clock and said, "I'll be there. What time, and what do you want me to do?" "Well, I don't know what I want you to do yet, but you can come on out any time." So it started from there and went.
So what year was that, Al?
That was 86.
86?
I believe 85 or 86.
Eight-
I believe 86.
86.
Yeah.
So what was your role then? What did you figure out?
Well, I worked in the office and paperwork, financials, and other stuff.
Well, we
And
we were starting in Des Moines at that time.
No, this
Not-
before
not-
you were starting.
I
to
was in Des Moines.
build in Des Moines. Yes.
I was in Des Moines. I said, "You take care of that place up there, and I got to go down there and take care of what's going on down there." I think a month later,
Yeah, you called me on the way back and said, "Can you come down for a day? I got a little something here that you could do, and if you don't mind, you want to come down for a day?" So I went down for a day for about 2 weeks, and pretty soon he says, "Well, can you make it for 2 days?" "Yeah, I'd go whatever." Well, then 3 days. Anyway, for the next, I don't know how many years, I lived down there and drove back and forth every weekend, and that was.
It seems like we were in a period of time, that was probably a 10-year period, where we were growing. They hired me to make sure that the material was on site because it wasn't happening. And then one thing ended up, I started drawing and I started selling after 3 years on my own. And so I got another job. I mean, I just grew into something else. We hired Al, probably not knowing what we were going to do, but what Jeff wanted him to do or however, but Al grew into the job pretty soon. He handled all the TIs. Keith Berg was hired because he was a superintendent on the school job, the fire. And I think you hired him from there or talked to him there. And he was hired for a specific deal, but he grew into other things. And so there was quite a long time there where everyone that we hired grew into more responsibility, more.
So
I think one of the things also in that we found in that Latimer Des Moines transition is when we were, as Del was saying, we needed to hire and find more people, the right people. We didn't hire just anybody. We hired the right. Well, as you know, you and I worked together. I flew all the way to Tucson to hire you. So that was a long time ago. But
Yes, it
anyway,
was.
we couldn't in Latimer. We talked to people. "Oh, you got to move to Latimer." "Where's that?" Well, it came to we had to make that transition to Des Moines, and so that's started that. And then that growth period after that, when the company, our purpose changed, we were being more diverse. We could affect larger areas, and we could work with a lot more people, more employees, and everything. We just kind of fell into place. So,
How many people in 1986?
18.
yeah, two
And that-
crews of 9. That was pretty easy.
Well, that was 18. That was the people that that I went out every morning to the shop.
With a blackboard.
Yeah, that's right. And
Red board.
Yeah, red board. Sorry, cardinal and red board.
Cardinal
Yes.
red. He had yellow chalk on a red board.
had their names up there, and here's where you go. Then from that 18, after we get, then during the Wynwood apartment facility in West Des Moines, we had 356, I believe, people working for us. And that we were doing all the framing and other things. So it grew way up and
That was their biggest job at that
Yes.
point. It probably, man-wise, internally.
Oh, yes.
That was, and the Bosnians all happened in this process
And-
too,
and
which is
that's-
another story.
That's something I think is worth noting. The political asylum sponsorship that Henning did to bring those Bosnian folks, their families to Johnston. And realistically, it's a very neat story in the city of Johnston of how those families have flourished because of what you guys did in the 80s and 90s for those families.
You'll have to hear the story because otherwise I'm not going to be here tomorrow. Governor Ray, 72, I think, Governor Ray approved this, the year might be wrong, but approved Iowa as a place to send the Bosnians because other states didn't want them or they were having trouble. Well, the Catholic Church, which my wife was very strong in, the Catholic Church brought in 3 families, which were the original E-cliques.
Yep.
And so we would go to church, and she's sitting here, I'm sitting there, and they're talking, and yeah, we're getting the furniture, we got places, and yeah, they got food, and there's clothes going on, and they're getting the schools all worked out, so I'm kind of getting comfortable. And my wife was in the choir, and somebody in the choir said, we can't find jobs for them. We're sitting there, and the priest said, yeah, we're looking for jobs. And my wife's left elbow went clear up to her shoulder, and better than her golf swing, took out my left rib. I called Cook as soon as I got home and said, hey, if I'm going to live, you got to make a call here. And that's how we got the boys. And are you going to get to the Bruce story at one of our customers?
And when we had the Bosnians come in for interviews, I would sit with a picture book, and that's how we interviewed back and forth. Some of their kids speak enough English to get through, but we had a picture book of the different tools. Did you use this tool? Did you use this one? And that's how the group came together. I think at one time we had 79 Bosnians.
Yeah, I was
Something
going
like
to say
that.
86.
About 79 Bosnians, and I think at one time we had 18 from one family. So that was when we separated the people to go to the different jobs, we always used to take them in our own vehicle or their company vehicles. And we'd have 4 of them or however many go into company vehicles. Well, so I thought, this isn't good to put everybody in one family. So we tried to separate to the different jobs to go to different places. Well, the boys got upset about that. Well, we all want to go to the same one. I said, no, it's not going to happen, guys. And so anyway, that was one of the challenges at that point. So.
And we just recently had the last retirement of that group, and I believe he was with us for 27 years.
Hassan?
Hassan, yep. Does that sound right, about 27
Yep.
years?
Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
And the really neat thing is the impact it's had on the community there's bankers and lawyers and
Yes.
general managers of all kinds of businesses that have come from those families. They've really lived the American dream.
Yeah, and it's. I think it's important to note that they took hardship to come here. We didn't realize until maybe 2 or 3 years after they'd been here of the education level and or professionalism that they had in their home country. Well, one of the Eagle brothers was he made in the mountains the lines,
Lineman.
power
Linemen,
linemen to
yep.
go over the towers and linemen. We had doctors, we had professional people. It was amazing.
Did you always know you wanted to be in the family business?
At $6,750, no. But yes, I did. That's how I got into engineering. I grew up underneath the table, so I did probably everything in the construction company, from concrete to digging trenches to whatever it was, cabinetry, etc. I got to mention Charlie at this point in time because I worked on the Cadillac crew for a while. You go from the concrete crew, you go to the framing crew, you go to the et cetera. And back in the day when we were doing the first chicken houses, the concrete crew went through, they went on to another place. Framing crew came through, they went on to another place. Now the building was closed up. The Cadillac crew came, and at that time that was Charlie. If you got in the Cadillac crew, you didn't have to worry about rain or cold or whatever. But I worked the Cadillac crew with Charlie, and then when I came back, and he walked in one day and said, "I'm going to work for you." I said, "Well, Charlie, I guess that's the way it works." But we worked together because I would sell the jobs. And so we'd go out to a farmhouse, and these farmhouses, of course, are, not new. And the lady wants X. And so Charlie would always tell me, bring the 6-foot level and a red pencil. And red pencil behind my ear, book here to sketch and do what we did to help Charlie along his way in those processes. And we'd get done, and Charlie'd say, well, okay, so is this wall okay? Now we need to do something with that. Is that wall okay? Well, yeah, okay. So we're going to draw a big red line right here in the wall in the living room, or 2 foot from the kitchen door, and that's how far we're going to go. So afterwards, you can't yell at me about the cracks and the other stuff on down the way. And that was Charlie's scope of work, was inside the red lines. Mm-hmm. He was good at it. The ladies loved him. I got to tell you, to this day, the ladies love him. And so there was very little argument usually when Charlie got done. He was well regarded in that piece.
Charlie's teaching woodworking classes in Arizona when he's down there now. And
I can believe that.
I can believe that.
Charlie was in the office the other day. I believe he worked for Henning almost 60 years, correct?
He started in, he was 20 years old, I believe. So he was 4 years younger than my father, 3 or 4. So I think he was about 20, 21 years age. He went to school and then decided to do this. So from 20 until whenever it is, you really called the ball.
Well, he decided he didn't want to do inventory at the warehouse anymore.
Yeah.
And Charlie's grandson, who I've met a few times now, was actually helping
He was
Charlie
doing
out
the work
for a while.
Yeah.
And a funny story, we were at the Hy-Vee Fast and Fresh one day, and we had our 100th anniversary logoed polos on, and this young man comes up and says, "You probably don't remember me, but I'm Charlie's grandson. Could I buy one of those shirts for my grandpa?" No, sir, you cannot. We will send some. And I had Sam send some polos down to Charlie.
Well, so 1949, 1953 was when he started. His wife was on the girls' basketball team and went to state tournament. That's why I remember that process. So 1953 to whenever this latest event happened, 63, 73, 83, 93, 2003, 2013, 2023 would have been 70.
Yeah.
So, yeah, 66 or 70
60
years.
so some odd years, yeah.
What a record.
And that's, an interesting thing about this business is we have some traditions of long-standing employees and
Longevity.
And longevity, absolutely. We also have some really neat traditions for celebrating those things.
Yeah, we do.
Mm-hmm.
The Henning rings, the
Free
clock.
pickup.
What's that?
Free pickup.
And a free pickup, yep. So, Jeff, why don't you
In
tell
Charlie's case, about 5 of them.
You had to give Charlie 3 pickup trucks. But
Yeah, that was the first time we did that, when it was his 40th, if I remember right, Al.
That's what it was.
We had him in for,
Who was the little guy, the equipment company that ran that, along with, he's the one that handed Charlie the keys to the pickup.
he went out and changed the size. I don't remember, quite frankly. But we had them all in for supposedly a safety meeting.
Safety meeting or something.
Safety
So we
meeting,
get
yeah.
everybody in. Just,
And the guy said, "Charlie, I'll go run wash your pickup for you. So he took his keys and went and switched all of Charlie's stuff over to the other truck. So, yeah.
And are you the second recipient?
Third,
Who was the second?
Bruce Keene.
Bruce Keene. That's right.
He had
Yep,
41 years. Yeah.
That's right. And we bought Bruce a truck. I remember this.
Yep.
He picked it out, decided he didn't like it. He traded it on
Traded
a
it
different
off.
truck 2 weeks after we gave it to
Because
him.
he got a bigger camper, he needed a bigger truck.
Yeah. He's pulling a 50 footer with a pop out on it, you know.
Yep.
This is probably a little bit off subject, but you're talking about funny times and just things that you remember. The first 3 years I was on Jeff's Shirt Tails, and we're basically doing wall bombs or Michael's Foods. And Dan Gardner comes up to Jeff and says, I want to build a pool for my wife. And we're sitting there. So we meet with him, and then the next week, Friday, we go out again. We meet with him again, and what was his wife's name? Mimi?
Oh,
Dan
Mimi was the son's.
Dan Gardner's wife.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so she takes
Jean.
Jean. So she takes Dan off the side and goes in the kitchen. We could hear everything. She says, "Why are you having a chicken house builder build our pool?" So they come back out, sit in the thing, and Jeff has his engineering paper and shows a picture of the wrought iron gate or the railing that's going to go around it. And it said D and G, and right in the middle was not an oval, it was an egg. And he says, this is why we do this. This is why we use him.
But they
selling point.
they also made me rent a plane, go get them, and take them to show them
Yes,
when
you
we were doing it at Ruprecht's at Brand R's projects. And on the way home, and I flew with them. And on the way home, she said, I had no idea. But I think that's one thing that we as a company have probably done better than most people is surprise people what we can do.
Mm-hmm.
The core value or the thing that you want everybody to live by, which was do it right. Or I used to tell
always
them,
do the right thing.
and we used to do the barnyard story, and we try not to do that anymore because we're bigger than that. But, that was where Grandpa Lars was particularly eloquent in that you do a pole shed, you do a barn, you do something, and the door doesn't latch. And the guy goes to town, tells all the guys at breakfast, the door doesn't latch, So that's what they all remember is the door didn't latch. And instead of sending somebody out for $100 and fix a door, so that he remembers you on the right side, you need to remember that it's the little things that count, and you have to do it right. And you can't buy your way out of that.
That's when Charlie came in,
Yeah.
because he just took care of the problems.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I learned early on in my time with Henning was that is what makes us who we are. Doing the right thing, always. And that's how we have repeat customers for some of them 50 years, right?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of that has to go back. A lot of that credit has to go back to the employee, the men and women out there that did the work.
Mm-hmm.
Because we talked about the longevity, but that longevity translates into DNA, long-term DNA. These people just led led the whole organization. We've got people with 20 years, 30, 40. Plus we got, in some of the sides, there's 20 years of the boys coming up and more.
Yeah.
And they love it. And they think that's the greatest thing out there about working with everybody in the organization is that they've been there that long and can say, I've worked with them there.
You take the Jerry Bookie with National Foods. He said, Dell, I think we built 21 buildings for him. He'd give me a contract for 3 buildings at a time. And he said, well, I need Eddie back. I says, Eddie's on another job, so I'd have to call Al and say, hey, we're not going to get this unless we have Eddie come back. But Eddie was the one that sold that building.
Yeah.
Theron Miller's and Don Paulson was one of the few people that Don Paulson got along and trusted was Theron Miller. Mm-hmm. And So you had to make sure that Theron Miller was going
I'll
out
bet
to do
they're
that
having a
job.
whale of a conversation where they are
Right
right now. What you
And-
got to do is,
But every one of our foremen and our superintendents created our jobs. It wasn't me out selling. It wasn't that. It was
no,
our
it's-
reputation
it's
in
the
the
people.
field, taking care
it's
of
a
our
flag they
customer.
carry. It's the flag they carry. There's no getting around it.
Yeah,
Our field staff is absolutely the face of our business.
it is.
They are touching our customers every single day during the build. That's what they remember. That's the relationships that are built.
Just heard a month ago that one of our customers wants Tim Evans to go down to Texas because he's doing such a fine job at their job in another state.
Yep.
And, that's the easiest sell you can get.
So 1971, outside of Latimer, on the colder corner, are 3 chicken houses. There was only one at that point in time. And it was a high-rise house. It was new. It was going to be flat deck, which you rode over with a little railroad. It was just a terrible idea, but it was. We built about 5 of them. Unfortunately, they're all gone. But
One's still there.
oh,
It's a machine shed.
okay,
Bobby Hamilton's.
okay. So anyway, there was a fire. All right. Actually, this was a rebuild. It had blown down or something before that in a big storm. And so it was winter, and we had birds coming. You know how it is. They put the birds in, and now it's our problem, right? So I went farm to 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 find kids and farmers that didn't have livestock, that had kids or whatever, and that's how I got Bruce Keene. And Bruce Keene had just bought a ladder truck and was going to be a painter. And I said, Bruce, I gotta, you can't paint in this kind of weather. Can you please help me here? So I'll work for you for 3 weeks. I don't know what you take 3 weeks into 41 years times 52 weeks, but that's a lot of contract renewals.
Yep.
And another deal was Joe Scallon. We pretty much had the job, but he says, "You know what? Why I hired you guys?" And I says, "No. I was up fishing, and Sparbo's. There was a storm went through between Latimer and Coulter, and you had a crew go up to Sparbo's, their pull-up site, before they could even get people around to pick up garbage. Insulation.
Yeah.
And he says, Joe says, I called Sparbo's and says, I got extra guys around. He says, I'll send them over. He says, Henning's is already there. He says, that's why I want you guys here on the job, because Al went and got that all done.
Yeah. Back in the day.
That's right.
Yeah.
He would call me, I would call him, we would call each other 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock at night, something happened somewhere. That was what we did, I started way back in the day with a card on the back that said, have hammer, will travel.
I remember that one.
And you have to be our age to remember that Paladin said, have gun, will travel. But it's just, that's who we are. The customers are important.
Without them, we have nothing.
Yeah.
So I'll change gears just a little bit.
Yeah.
1986, Al, nearly 40 years, right?
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I quit. I didn't even count that because I was having so much fun doing that. So
Exactly.
I lost count. I just kept right on going.
So why don't you tell us how you joined the business and how it changed and evolved in your time? You were my mentor, the man that I
Yes.
worked under for many years.
Now, we worked together for many years, but anyway, I started in '86. It said shortly. It started and went down to Des Moines, lived down there. We lived in the same apartment, but I hate to tell people that too many times. But anyway, we outside in the office, we might go 2 weeks and never say anything but hi, good morning as we walk by. A lot of the stuff that happened in that time frame for one example, I think we talked earlier about telephones and from what went on many years ago. I can remember we bought our first fax machine. We used to drive back and forth to a customer in West Des Moines, and he finds out, you guys got to get a fax machine. You know, that sucker cost us $1,500 back there. I will tell you, that was a lot of money. We had to really talk about that. So they would fax those little drawings in, and we'd estimate them. And but things happened so much slower then than they do today.
Oh.
You guys, Kevin, and your group have to work a lot faster. Everybody wants an answer yesterday. They want it right now. I'll send it to you. I'll email it to you. Give me an answer now. And the people do not have time to really think about it. You have to have the right people that can work through that and can give an answer if they have to, and people have to be available. But that time frame and what's happened in the internet, the marketing and everything that goes along with the marketing, there's so much social media that feeds into it, good, bad, and indifferent. So you have to play with all that all the way through. So.
Absolutely.
So in 19-something, my phone goes off at 3 o'clock in the morning. In 1993, Andrew went through Miami. As soon as I got done with the phone, Pioneer said, be at my office within a half an hour, pack a suitcase, bang. A cold cook. I said, here we go. They put me in an airplane. They gave me a briefcase. It was a little thicker than a normal briefcase. You opened it up, and an umbrella kind of thing came up and went like this, and it was a satellite fax machine. We went down there, landed in Fort Lauderdale. There was myself and Dick, starts with B, from
Oh, yes.
Pioneer. Anyway, long story short, we landed there, got a car, didn't have a place to live, nothing. Went up to Miami Lakes and rented an apartment in Miami Lakes, which was north of all this. Now the toll booths are gone, all the signs are gone, there are no street lights, there's no nothing. Okay, so the next morning, we're trying to go down there. It was like 45 minutes, which could have been a 20-minute drive at the most. And you get there, and there are piles 16 foot tall on either side of the road where they've been pushing stuff up. So our job was to put together a compound to save their people because they had people down there they had nothing. So the military part of us got to make an enclave out of it. So I called Al and said, meanwhile, he's driving to Webster City buying every 50-foot motorhome they got up there and pickups to hook onto them and send people south, gas truck to go get stuff, generators. So we put this whole thing together. And what we're trying to do here is save little packets of seed corn that might have gotten in somebody else's hands.
Very valuable seed corn.
That's right.
But we ended up staying for a year and a half. And I think we decided to go home for two reasons. I'm going to let Al finish this because I remember one of them. But the guys across the street started shingling the roofs from the bottom.
Bottom up.
Crews of them. We're going to be a little hard to compete against this, other than telling them your roof's upside down. And we were carpetbaggers because we were from the north and the south at that point in time.
I think it was 8 days after that hurricane came through, we had 9 men that all volunteered, because the first thing you got to do is ask for volunteers. Yeah. Everybody thought it was going to be a great deal. Even the time when they called me and said, can you buy snake bite kits and send them down? So anyway, we had, plus the 9 guys, we had 5 campers, and we had 1 guy, and we just treated it like a military. We've all had some experience in that. And the 1 guy took care of the boys, And they'd leave in the morning, come back at night, and there'd be lunch and dinner, and he'd have it all ready.
Yes, plus
He'd
we had to
go
drive
chase
clear
down.
up into Carolina to get gas
Yes.
to
Oh,
keep
really?
the generator going.
Yeah, generators. We had 2 big
Logistics.
generators.
I didn't, so we're Al and I together. We weren't together all that long on that process. We would go back and forth. So we're both in Miami Lakes. We get into this car and we're headed south. And the Miami violence issue arose as we were driving down in front of us in the car. And I picked up the phone and called. I think you told me to call
Yes.
The Decker.
Decker.
Yes, Decker. There,
Okay,
there
call Decker. Tell him we want 5 semis down here tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock. He started calling customers because it just was too dangerous down there to be there. And we ended an amicable arrangement with all the customers and got it finished for them. But
But that was the start of the Henning Group.
That was going
in
to be my
Naples.
next question.
That was the start of the Henning Group in Naples because went over there and started that.
10 or 12 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah. So from humble beginnings in Latimer, Iowa, to what the family businesses are today, I mean, you've grown, you've acquired. There are how many businesses, and the lineage of when those became part of the Henning family of businesses and so forth. I would love to hear that.
Well, you know, it all started with the construction business. And God bless one of our customers from Wakefield, Nebraska, for teaching us the poultry business, because a good friend of mine was in the banking business, and somebody didn't pay him for 3 chicken houses, and I got the keys one day. And 2 years later, I think I owed him more money than the day he threw the keys on the desk, so I figured I better go figure out how to run this. That's how we got into chickens, okay? Other than the start in the 60s when we were building the buildings. But we also had tough times in the construction company. And I think it's fair to say that to go back to a time when I flew to my mom and dad's place in Marco Island, closed the patio doors and sat out in a chair with a 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and line down the middle, winners, losers, winners, losers, winners, losers. Why do plumbers never get asked about what they get and they always get it? Why do, things change? So what could we do or branch out into? We had to diversify because we were too confined in geography, too confined in what we did. And that's where all these other companies come from. Quite frankly, naturally recycled proteins business was a thought process that came out of that was waste management. Nobody argues with waste management. That's a whole other story we're not going to have today. And so there was one answer. So what about nobody wants to take spent chickens? It's dirty. Nobody wants to take care of a dirty business. So we started looking for places where other people didn't want to be. And that's really, I think, where we all got there.
I think one thing to keep in mind from Latimer, Iowa, as you sit here tonight, and there's 3 of us, totally unrelated. We did go to the same high school because that was the only high school. But anyway, have been part of building, selling in a large, even with yourself, Kevin, because you're part of it. But all the chicken houses that have, and the poultry and the turkeys and the swine that came about.
Commercial too.
Commercial, and my gosh, the commercial in Des Moines and other places. So anyway, that little town of Latimer generated that start. So
Yeah. It was a work ethic. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think all of us from Iowa understand a work ethic, at least.
Absolutely.
So.
So Del, 43? 46, sorry. I just wrote your anniversary letter not too long ago.
Okay.
I should have remembered. What's your favorite thing about Henning?
Enjoying to go to work every day. It's as simple as that. I mean, I love the business. I love the customers. Love these guys. It's fun. It's hard to quit.
You don't ever quit.
You told me I have to.
Yeah, how'd that work out?
I let him,
It's not
how'd that
working,
work
Jeff.
out?
I let him off the hook when we were out in Colorado, so we'll keep him around for a while.
It's not working well, but I'm not complaining either. I'm not.
You love what you do.
I do love what I do. To start coming out of the Army and getting an opportunity, and one thing led into another. Like I say, no one here has the job they were hired for. We've done something else. 3 years on his shirt tail, and Jewel Graves comes in the office and says, "Jeff, do you want a chicken house up in Wisconsin?" And he says, "Dell, get your butt in here." And he says, "If you want it, you go after it." It was a 60 by 296 double wide chicken house.
That's massive.
Yeah,
Then
it was.
It was then, yes.
It was Elmer Brandt with Humpty
Elmer
Dumpty Egg.
Okay.
Couldn't script this any better. And I think we made more money than what we're supposed to. And I look back on that in the last 5 years and think, because from there I went from there to Braswell Milling in Raleigh, North Carolina, to Larry Jones in West Virginia, to Bill Imke in Indiana. And after that, it's a blur. And there's probably 700 chicken houses under my belt. But Jeff had to just roll over in his bed every night. I had Clyde Coots for a concrete guy. Him and a Toyota pickup. And when they got to West Virginia, the back end was full of empty beer cans. But they'd hire some people out there, and they did good concrete
Let's
work.
not finish what happened with that one.
Yeah. And
That's
then
where
Lan Hensman.
we're gonna talk about when he gets done. We're gonna talk about West Virginia. Go ahead.
Lan Hensman would frame it and pretty much do it turnkey for us. I was having kids at that time. My wife was having kids at that time. And I was on the road. I was on an airplane every week. But I wouldn't trade it for nothing. I mean, it was a good time.
I think the motto that I would shoot, that you've heard me say, any 3 days in a row when you don't like what you do,
That's my story.
quit. It can be 3 minutes, 3 months, 3 years. But you cannot be good for the company if you don't like what you do.
Can't be good for you either.
No, it's a whole turn story, and we've had a lot of graduates from our university, many, quite frankly, and I wish them well. Several of them came back several times. Several of them stuck in both directions. But what better deal could any construction be proud of than somebody graduated from you and went on and had a successful business? I mean, quite frankly, that means they learned a lot of stuff. So,
Yep.
So, Jeff, you told me a great story yesterday about West Virginia or Virginia. I don't remember which.
yeah. So
And
we're at a show, and I think we had decided to go to the East Coast shows and the West Coast poultry shows. And I'm out in the East Coast, and this gentleman gets to me and says that Highline had said, "Come talk to me," and he was going to build another chicken house. And a competitor of ours had built the first one, and the second one he was ready to start building on. He had the foundation done. He laid all the block right on top of the sod. No mud. Just stacked them next to each other. So anyway, he called me. I fly up there. I went across the George Washington, across this bridge, 4 times that night. I was supposed to be there at 5 or 6 o'clock. I got there at 9 or something at night. It was pitch dark. I didn't know what I was walking into. There's a cabin. I walk into the cabin, and there's a fireplace that's this tall. Okay, you could walk into it if you wanted to. And it had the great big cast iron things that came down, and a pot this big around boiling like crazy. And was this guy's name Larry?
Larry Jones.
Oh,
Jones,
God.
yeah.
So Larry said to me, well, I've been holding dinner. I was not necessarily food forward, but we don't eat a lot of possum. And I'm there. I got no place to go. I could do George Washington Bridge. I couldn't find to save my soul if I wanted to get out of there. So I stayed on the dirt, laid on his floor, and we supped that evening. And the next day we went out and sold that place. As soon as I got back to the point where I had sell things, I said, Dell, it's yours.
And I'll tell you how I got to the place, because I flew out. I couldn't find it. Finally, there's a lady driving a mail truck. I said, do you know where this address is? She says, yeah, just go up here a little bit, take a right, and it's on your left. And I couldn't find it. I did it 3 times. Finally, I found her again. I says, do you have mail for them? She said, well, I'm not supposed to tell you that. But she says, yes, I do. And I said, I'll just follow you. And that's how I got to the farm.
I mean, it was,
There's no straight roads there. It's just,
well, it was, believe me, it was out in the middle of nowhere.
So with this many years of experience, you guys have to have some great customer stories. Al?
Well, one of the customer stories was when we sold a project in Cameroon. We sold it, obviously, prepaid, because we won't do anything different. But he also wanted corn. So I priced the corn to him. I mean, we can do anything, right? Anyway, I priced the corn. He came back, oh, you're $1 million too high. I said, fine, that's okay. And so he bought the corn from somebody else, and I sent the first shipment in. It was like 6 or 7 containers, all prepaid. Took those. The corn he bought from some other group in North Carolina, and the corn came in bulk. But I'd been over to his place in Cameroon. There's no way in the world he could do bulk. And so the demurrage on that ship was god-awful. So he wouldn't pay it. So they just withheld all the rest of our equipment, which didn't make any difference to us.
Is that still sitting there today?
It's probably in Belgium someplace, because that's where it was then. So,
And Al, you did a lot of international work over the years. What all countries did you do work in?
actually, the first thing we did was Brazil for Highline, and then after that was Japan for Highline.
England.
We did England,
Berlin,
UK.
Yep.
Then we did China, and we did Nigeria with processing, broiler processing, and then Cameroon, and then Grenada, which didn't. And Uzbekistan, we signed the contract, but that was a bunch of politics screwed up, and we weren't. We had a signed contract for Uzbekistan. But the thing about that particular project was I got there, and Steve Rigger and I got there early. I mean, it was like 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, and the plane landed. They came in the car and said, the lady came up and said, we want Mr. Cook and Mr. Rigger. And I'm going, oh, we must be, going to get shot or something. So they took us in, and we had our baggage scanned coming into the country. And they said, we're going to go take you to your hotel, to a place to sleep. So they pulled up to the gate to get in, and it was a large fence or large wall. And we went in, and this place was all marble. And anyway, it was the president's summer palace for Uzbekistan. The next morning, they took us to the motel, and we got to the motel, and there was bollards, and they went down in the ground, and we drove over them to get there. So anyway, from then on, we had a few other things.
Not the safest place in the world, right?
I think it was for us.
For you, yeah. I joined the business in 2004. Mr. Cook learned that I was looking for a job to move back to the Midwest. I'm a Midwestern boy and had spent time in Colorado and Arizona, and it was time to get back to Iowa. And Al flew down. It was a Wednesday. I talked to Al on Tuesday for the first time. Al came down that next day, and I was baffled on how he could get there the next day, but he did. And we went to dinner, and we were sitting there at dinner, and Al slid across the table to me a Henning business card with my name on it and my title. And I thought, how on earth did he pull this off? And, you know, I had heard of Henning the previous day. I did not know anything about the company and so forth. And I thought, well, you know, this is bold. This is really one of the most interesting ways I can think of to get hired for a job. And I thought, you know, I'm going to give this company a try, give it a chance. So that was October 4th of 2004. So I'll celebrate 20 years.
20 years.
Here shortly.
Well,
The other
100.
thing about that, when I went down there and I was going to meet you, so I just came up down in the reception area and sat there so I could watch the front desk. And you came down and to the front desk and were asking for wherever. And so it's one of these things. You watch the person. And so when you see the right person, you can provide that card if you think it's right.
Yeah.
Okay?
He had Sam and Jack's card in his pocket, too.
There was 3 other guys in the hotel, yeah. So yeah, I joined to be part of our hotel development group, be a project manager for that, and I think it was all of 2 weeks before I was building hog finishers in Illinois,
That's right.
and I've loved it ever since. One of the most amazing companies I've ever been around. The family business, the family oriented business is just fantastic. I can't see myself anywhere else.
Well, I think we're in 35 states. The pins on the wall, I think, are behind, just for the record.
They are.
That's just a little pride, okay. But I was sitting in the room and went over and started counting. So it says 35 states and 5 or 6 foreign countries. We should probably update that. Dell used to do that, but he's
We do it once a year.
It's an amazing extension of what I would ever have dreamed of. And it's all to do with people willing to make a sacrifice for their career, their company, or whatever. And you can't do it alone. The name above the door, you guys have heard me say this a lot of times. The name above the door is mine and my family's, but that has nothing to do with how we got here. And I think it's important that everybody that'll be in the audience understands that without them, we wouldn't be here. Albeit a customer, a banker, a person that's working with us in any capacity. Because to the smallest point of that process, in their mind, is really not small. Because it takes an orbit that's completely full of the right places filled and the right seats in the bus done. And that, to me, is very, very proud.
You should be proud, Jeff. This has been an incredible journey for you.
And Grandpa
Yeah.
and Dad. So
I think it was the second year I worked for Jeff. He said, Dell, he says, I think the car or the wheels are going to fall off the car. He says, we sold $1.73 million worth of stuff. I'm not going to say what our overhead is right now, but it exceeds that. And that was an accomplishment.
By a bit, yeah.
yeah, actually, I told my dad, and mom passed away a couple of months ago at 93. Dad about 3 years ago. But I told my dad, I said, I'll write my number down. And if we get this company, I'm going to make $1 million in a couple of years and retire. Top line.
Top line. Yeah. After the family-owned portion of the history of the business, what was the next step for Henning?
Well, I was sitting in my office, and a gentleman called me and said, "There's somebody who would like to look at your company for purchase." And I said, "We're not for sale," and hung up. That person called back again. And I said, "Well, look, we always listen to everything." I had to then go look at myself in the mirror, look at my family, look at all the people who have been with us here that are in this room today and others, and say, okay, maybe it's time to look and see if we can protect the business, protect the family, protect all the families that have been with us to help us get here, and talk to these people. So out of that came discussion with the Perrick people, and Joe and I had some discussions. Al and them had some discussions, and someday, nice sunny in the summer, Al called me and said, "I'm sending an airplane to pick you up, and you're coming to Des Moines to have a discussion with these folks." I said, "Okay." It snowed what?
It was a flaming blizzard.
So in the middle of the winter, we locked ourselves all in a motel room and had a discussion and came out with a framework of something to keep talking about. Looked at it with my family and all of our people and senior, et cetera, and just said, probably it's time to take a position to where this company will see its way through the fruition of the future, which it can go to. We had a discussion about selling it to senior management, but the discussion really came down to, is that going to be the best course to get the right people in the right seats if big growth takes place? So that's my answer to that question. And thank you, Joe.
Yeah, it's been a good ride since. So,
Yeah.
Do you remember the first project you worked on?
By myself,
Yeah.
Elmer Brandt, Humpty Dumpty Eggs.
And is Humpty Dumpty Egg still around?
Yes, they are. Elmer's passed away, but his son is running the business. I imagine it's his son that's running the business, and that was in Reedsville, Wisconsin.
Okay. Al, same question.
Absolutely remember it. I was, like I said, I was supposed to work in the office, and Jeff left, and at that time he had been building some manure
Fermenters.
Okay? And he built one for a hill. in
Paul Hill.
Paul Hill.
Paul Hill in Ellsworth, and then he put up a small building to store this. Well, it caught fire, and he called. And he said, "I don't have time to go to this. I don't know. Go to this. Go down and see what you can do." I'm going, okay. I'm an old farmer, but I'm just in the office. So I go down there, and here's all the panels are melted. Long story short, I found those panels that metal sails had changed their how they set the grooves and everything.
Yeah.
Anyway, to match that, we found it down in Missouri, brought it up, and had it
That
fixed.
was U.S. Steel.
Yeah, U.S.
Strong
Steel.
panel.
And then to this day, every time I drive up Interstate 35, I look over to the west, and
Paul
I say-
Hill's fermenter.
I find that fermenter, and that's the first one that was. So
Yeah.
So I am new in the seat in the office, 1970 something. Paul Hill was in the National Guard unit that I was in at that time. And I didn't know him from squat, quite frankly. He calls me and says, "My mom and my dad and my wife and I are coming up, and we'll be there. We're en route. We'll be there in 45 minutes. I just really have to wash my desk and clean it off." And, so he walks in, and they want to build some turkey buildings. And his mother and father were very astute. They asked a lot of good questions. Paul was very astute, went on to be the head of Liberty Foods, Turkeys, and is still in the business. His kids are still customers of ours. And we went and built buildings for them forever. But I had to go to Mom and Dad's house in Ellsworth and have pie. It was good pie, fortunately. But that's how we did business back then.
My view of our company is that we provide solutions to our customers, help them with their businesses and so forth. How do you guys think, Del, Al, Jeff, how do we help our customers succeed?
We all started not knowing anything. He knew how to build air doors out of 2x2s, and he became what he is today. I didn't know anything about chickens, but I've learned something from every customer. And so if you can share that with confidence to the next guy, and after 46 years, you get to be somewhat smart in how a chicken house works. And you express that to your customers, and a lot of them will buy into that.
I think along with that, you also have to understand what their business is, and you need to talk with them and understand where they are, where they want to go, because you're talking to them 10 years out too, because those projects we do are 10-year projects. They're that far out. So you need to understand where they're at, be cognizant of what they're looking for, how we can serve them, and move on from there. So
When the phone goes off and the person starts on the other end, you develop a relationship first, and then you find out why they were calling.
Mm-hmm.
And if you just say, okay, what do you want? That's really not a good start. So to me, it's always been, okay, how's your wife? How's your family? How's the kids? How we doing? How's the business? Da, 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 da. And, oh, by the way, I know you guys are doing something over there. Is there something we can learn about that? So the knowledge that we carry as a company is 100 years old. Got to remember that. So that is important to your customers also, because if you're driving around in some town and it says 100 years service, 100 years of business, people see that. They go, well, okay, they must know something. And so even if they don't know you, when you pick it up, it's okay, hi, how are you? What's going on? Just to me, it's a relationship process. That's how we help our customers, because they then call us when they need us. Or they just want some advice. And if you could give it to them without violating any issues of any kind, and they know we're willing to do that. We've tried to make the mistakes ourselves. That's why we're in a lot of different businesses, that we can make those mistakes so they don't have to.
So a number of years ago, I sat down in some strategic planning, and I was asked, what are the core values of the business? And it was very easy for me to state what they were, even though they may not have been written down. But what is the never compromise in your business lives to this point?
service and quality, pure service and quality.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Give
That and schedule.
Yeah.
That and schedule.
with live production. It's
Yep.
I don't want 100,000 chickens in my backyard. I don't know how many times I've been told that,
That's right.
but give, and Jeff told me this, give the customer the best possible product for the least amount of money. And sometimes I dig my heels in too much and fighting with the customer saying, "Well, I can do it cheaper, But you take a group out of Minnesota and he wants a heavier truss. Why was I fighting? But I'd say, I can save you $5 a truss. And so that was always my goal, is to give them the best possible product.
My grandpa said to me, the farmer's going to go to town, and I don't care if it's the top chief executive at the biggest company in the world, if he hears that there's something that's not getting fixed, that wasn't done right, that'll stick with you forever. So do it right. Let's do it right the first time. Let's get it done. If there's a maintenance issue that we need to take care of, even though it might be questionable in our mind, just make sure that when he goes to town, he doesn't complain about the doorknob that doesn't close.
Always do the right thing.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Differentiating yourself from the other people in the industry can happen by just being the cheapest, just being the most expensive, or just being the best. And in my opinion, you differentiate yourself by knowing the points that are different between you and your competition or the general industry without denigrating them. Just simply saying, this is what we do best. This is who we are. This is what we do best. We don't do some of these things. No names, no other stuff, but this is how we do it. Quite frankly, it used to be we don't do change orders. Okay? Life was different a little bit then back then. But we probably do less of that than most people. Mm-hmm. And what we say is what we'll do.
Everything was drawn on a napkin, and it was
engineering graphics.
And it was a handshake.
That's what we
call Latimer Engineering.
Lovingly refer to as Latimer Engineering.
I'm proud of that.
I, to this day, have 2 reams of engineering graphics paper from Iowa State University in my left-hand drawer in both offices.
Uh-huh. Is it from 1973 or?
Probably, because it's pretty yellow by now, and it started out white.
I don't get out to the competition. I don't even get out to chicken houses because you got to shower in, shower out. They don't want me there because I go to too many chicken houses. But I think we do a better job, and just the little things. This is before your time, but I've had a guy take down a ceiling because the electrician puts his conduit next to our rib, and you got a 600-foot, and if the lights just weave,
that's right,
it
you can
telegraphs
see
it. So he says, I'll get some new steel, but you're taking this down and you're going to put new one up because it was the right thing to do. And I think we do that kind of stuff better than the competition.
Well, you said it, Al, the understanding.
Exactly.
Understanding our customers' business, understanding their needs, understanding what we can do to impact their business. We're selling construction services, but we're also selling
a product.
We're selling a service to them to help them with their business.
Right.
You know, Dell, you're processing buildings that you design. And, you know, how can we help them be more efficient in their business, be cost effective for them in construction, and make it function for them the best we can. And the only way we do that is understanding how they operate. What makes things valuable to them are different than if you were building a commercial building when we're talking about our agricultural customers.
And I think we include more in our contract than the other people.
I would say across the spectrum of all the things we do, the biggest discussion that you have to have with people is the fact that we're going to tell you really what it's going to cost. Mm-hmm. And we can work with you to value engineer things in and out if we have to, no matter whether it's agriculture, commercial, luxury, high-rise, whatever it is. We can help you with all that process, but at the end of the day, you're going to make those decisions, but you're going to know from us that this is what it was you were asking for and what it was you were going to get, and versus a low bidder, change orders, and nicking, because we don't do that. That's what we don't do.
Mm-hmm. So everyone here tonight has helped us to where we're at in our 100-year journey. what would each of you say to the people here tonight to thank them for what they've done?
We really appreciate everything you've allowed us to work with you about. And that's in the agriculture, the commercial, and everything else we've done. International, we've done so many different things, and we were capable of so many things. But the only way we can do that is with the help of everybody sitting out here, and so we appreciate everything that they've done. So.
Yeah, I would say we would not be here if you weren't here. Plain and simple. Because everybody in the room had some part of this, or they wouldn't be here this evening. And so my thank you from our family and the Henning companies and all the people that are involved is that just plain and simple, you wouldn't be here if it wasn't important, and we wouldn't be here because you are important.
You know, I want to thank the people out in the field, whether you're management or pounding nails, to the office staff. We can't write a contract without office staff. We can't get prints printed without office staff. And it's all important. I mean, because we just can't do it. So to everyone out there, thank you.
We have a wonderful family of customers, friends, employees, and so forth that has really made this business what it is today. And thank you all for being here.